My guest today is actor Timothy Spall. He won the Best Actors Award at this year's Cannes Film Festival for his role in Mr. Turner. The film is directed by Mike Leigh. Welcome to San Francisco.
Thank you very much.
How many times have you been to this wonderful city by the bay?
This is the second time I've been here. The last time I was here was 19 years ago, and I brought my family, my wife and my 3 children. We came here, and then we went down to the Russian River, and we had a holiday down there and went through the Napa Valley and did a bit of that. And it was a celebration of the fact that I just wrapped on a film called Secrets and Lies.
Mike Leigh's film.
Yeah. So there's always some kind of Mike Leigh association every time the 2 times I've been here.
So thanks to Mr. Mike Leigh.
Well, I suppose he didn't pay for me to come the first time, but now inadvertently he is on this.
So congratulations on your film, Mr.
Thank
Turner. For those of us who may not know who Mr. Turner is, how would you describe him?
Mr. Turner was a late Georgian early landscape artist, British, English landscape artist. Very famous in his lifetime, very celebrated in his lifetime, and then derided in his lifetime, and towards the end of his life became one of the most revolutionary artists the world has ever known.
Because he was revolutionary, because?
Well, his style, right at the height of his powers, became different, and it, for want of a better word, predicted or presaged the way art would eventually go 150 years later.
So would you consider him a modern artist?
He was a modern artist of his time, but in a sense, I suppose, he was one of the inventors of modern art, although he wouldn't have said that's what it was. He would have said it was just how he was seeing things.
You won the Best Actors Award for the film at Cannes.
I did. Nobody was more surprised than me.
But there's also another story, because you got the call, you were in North Holland doing one of your favorite things, just puttering around in the sea in your barge. And the film's opening scenes, if I remember, are also Dutch landscape.
They are, yeah.
And you are very superstitious, I read somewhere.
Extremely, yeah.
So why were you in Holland?
Well, I have this boat, which seems to dictate to us where it wants to go, and we circumnavigated Britain in it. I taught myself how to be a mariner the hard way. The thing about Britain is it sits in the middle of the North Sea, so if you're going to learn about the sea, it's a good place to learn. And then one day, on a whim, we just went across the channel, spent a bit of time in France, and then this was after we'd finished Mr. Turner, and I eventually ended up in Holland in a place called Hellevoetsluis, which is actually the name of the painting that features at one scene in this film where he puts a red blob on it. Oh,
so you were in that town?
Yeah, no, not when they called. I'd moved on. I was up north. I'd gone up to a place called the Markermeer and IJsselmeer, which is the old Zuider Zee, which is a closed-off sea. But Turner did various paintings up there as well.
What was that red blob in that painting?
Well, the red blob was much to the consternation and surprise of his fellow academicians, looked like something he just destroyed his painting with. But he comes back in and changes it into a buoy, or as you say, a buoy over here, which he did through mischief, but also through the fact that his painting was in situ, and they were allowed to finish their paintings during a period at the Royal Academy pre their shows called Varnishing Days. And he saw Constable's painting next to him, which he had been working meticulously on for days, months and months, and he could see that it was massively red. His painting was very monochrome and blue and pale, So mischievously, he thought, well, Constable's painting is making mine look a little bit pallid. So he just came in and stuck a red blob on it and came back a few hours later and turned it into a red boy, which was the simplest way of using the red in Constable's painting to draw his eye, to the audience's eye, to his painting. So it made actually Constable's painting look rather overdone.
Is this a true story?
Absolutely true.
True story. And Constable is the other well-known painter and a contemporary of Turner.
Oh yeah, I suppose Turner and Constable were the two most well-known actors of that Freudian slip. Painters of that period, late Georgian, early Victorian, yeah.
When you say late Georgian, it's King George III, and that's when America broke out.
Yeah. Well, that was George III's son, actually. So Turner was born in 1775, and so the Georgian period went really to George III, George IV, right up until where Victoria accedes to the crown in 1837.
Okay, so that's the period we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, Georgian and early Victorian, because he died in 1851.
Okay. Mike Leigh, who directed and wrote this film, in an interview with Roger Ebert, very famously described you as an actor with an incredible emotional depth and great compassion for the pain with a massive sense of humor. How did you keep your humor when you were filming Mr. Turner, because you were a grumpy old guy in that film?
But Turner also has a great sense of humor. Whatever you do, whatever the job description is as an actor, whether you're playing a miserable person or you're playing a complex person or someone who is constantly jolly or somebody who spends most of their time being a curmudgeon, there's no reason to lose your sense of humor in your life. You just got to, that's down to you and down to your personal choice and down to the way you're made. In this case, one was concentrating on a complex, incongruous man of contradiction, so he's a very complex character, so you can keep your sense of humor,
I guess when I meant kept your humor, did you get out of character when you were playing Mr. Turner?
Oh yeah, you don't stay in all the time. I mean, the way that Mike Leigh works grows out of a collaboration, an improvisation, and building a real character from the ground up, based often on other human beings. No, you go into character when he asks you to go into character, and then you work in character, and then you come out when he asks you to come out of character. So it's not like you're in character all the time. You don't have to be, because the way he creates characters with you is very specifically about that. It's not a free-for-all. His modus operandi, his formula, his technique is one of his own inventing. It's unique. Nobody else works like that, and it protects you from having to, do that side yourself. It's all very much a collaboration.
So and he worked with you in collaboration in creating this character, almost like the way you prepare for a play, excepting in your case for this film, you were in preparation for over 2 years. You learned painting?
I did, yeah. He asked me, I phoned him up one day, because I found myself sitting outside a pub in London, in Maiden Lane, in Covent Garden, and there was a plaque above me, which said J.M.W. Turner was born here in 1775. And I rang him up because he mentioned this to me about 5 years before, that he was thinking about it, and he said, "Come in. This is real coincidence. Come in. George is here." That's Georgina Loder, producer. He said, "Do you remember that project I was telling you about, that Turner thing? Well, I've decided that's going to be my next film. Don't get excited. It's 2010 now. It's going to be called Untitled 2013 while we're working on it. I haven't got the money on it. It's going to be for it. It's going to be about Turner. I don't know what it's going to, how much of it's going to be, what part of his life is going to be. I don't know whether we're going to raise the money, but just as a precaution, if you're up for it, would you do me the great pleasure of learning how to paint? And then they found a brilliant guy called Tim Wright, who's a really talented portraitist, but also a brilliant art teacher. And he gave me a kind of a fine art foundation course, all of my own, and which eventually led up to us working on how Turner used his paints. And I got to a point where I actually, he got me to a point where I did a full copy of one of Turner's paintings in canvas.
Which one
on
was
canvas.
this?
Snowstorm, Steamboat Over Harbours.
Snowstorm is the one where you spit?
No, that's Staffer. That's Fingal's Cave. No, Snowstorm is the one he painted from the mast when he was tied to a mast.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you painted that.
Yeah.
So 2 questions.
No, I painted a copy of it. Yeah.
But so I have 2 questions. One is, what is this magnificent obsession that Mike Leigh had with making a film about Turner, Mr. Turner? He's had it for 20 years. And my second question is, did you develop a different eye because you trained as a painter under Tim Wright, and then you were playing this character, and Turner always was all business, you know, he had this magnificent obsession about painting. So one is Mike Leigh's obsession and one is your obsession, and how that changed your eye.
Yeah. I think it's no accident. In fact, it makes a lot of sense that if Mike was ever going to make a film about a painter, it would be someone like Turner. I mean, Mike Leigh had a very interesting education. He went to drama school, and he went to art school, and he went to film school. So he has a very strong working knowledge of all of these things: acting, art, and film directing. So. And I think when he started to discover how, what an unusual man Turner was, what a surprisingly contradictory human being, incongruous, that the man that produced this amazing visual poetry, this explosion of color and this understanding of a fundamental disconnect between the beauty, or the combination of the beauty and the terrible in art, and then this man with this massive, poetic, beautiful, astounding, electrifying talent was also this ordinary, on one level, simian sort of earthy, contradictory. Like a guy that you would imagine would be pushing a cart with the materials to be delivered to an artist, and then be given a couple of pennies and sent on his way, not the man who received the material and turned it into great art. So really, in a sense, I can't speak for Mike, but from my objective point of view and knowing him quite well, it makes sense that he would have honed in on that should we say, incongruity. And the second part of your question was, how did you
the eye? Yeah. Did your eye change?
Oh yeah, I think once you have your ignorance disabused by someone who's very, very clever, somebody who can teach you the practicalities of what it is to be a working artist, you never stop then looking. I mean, also, it was revealed to us as we did massive amount of research on books and looked at artists that influenced him, that he was, a polymath. He knew, he had a strong working knowledge of Greek and Roman architecture. He knew in depth Goethe's theory of light. You know, he was a person that was a great lover of poetry. So he, you know, everything that, when you work with Mike Leigh, when you are playing a character, you find out and experience as much as that character you're playing would have done, whether it be a character, completely original character that you invented, which most of Mike's films are, they're original characters, or whether you're creating a character that is grown as a human being to fit the bill of the research that the research is throwing up. You try and experience as much and understand as much as that person. I mean, it's impossible to understand. You know, Turner had a lifetime to assimilate and synthesize all of his knowledge. It's a bit like going away and saying to somebody, go away and come back. You're playing Einstein in 2 years' time. Go away and come back as clever as him. You can only skim the surface, you know. But it's certainly, now I've been through that journey, you know, I can look up and go, oh yeah, there's nothing in here, but there's plenty of Corinthian, Ionic, and Composito and Doric pillars in this place, and Piedmonts and entablature and so on and so forth. So
when you look out of that window, what do you see? Because it's a very different.
Well, I see a late morning light on a stucco-fronted quasi-Italianate palace, which was what they were obsessed with. Really, it's an Art Nouveau, piece of architecture. Yeah, there's a Corinthian column out there, an entablature. You know, I'm not bragging here. These are the things I had to look at, and these are the things I weren't aware of. But also the other thing, that these are the technicalities of what an artist's life are. Turner was digging deeper than the technicalities. He was using his skill to try and understand and record and capture something that is unbelievably poetic and contradictory in nature, which is its beauty and its destruction and its destructiveness.
Can you do one of those grunts?
No, because I'm not in character.
You're not in character.
But because that's a slightly irritating question.
I guess a lot of people.
Because it is an irritating question, here you go.
Man, that is kind of. I have one last question. The American influence in your life when it comes to music. I listened to your interview with the Desert Island Discs.
Oh, yeah.
Lena Horne.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Jolson, yeah, Brooke Benton. No, my mum had a great love of the Great American Songbook and all of those singers. Billy, I could ream them off, but I have a very diverse and very sort of anachronistic knowledge of music, because my mum was a big fan of that kind of music.
Is that the music we hear in Somewhere at Sea with you?
Well, it's Somewhere at Sea, the program about our mad trip around Britain, is more English dance bands that were copying American dance bands. Yeah, so it's sort of American music with an English slant, but very much of the 1930s.
Okay. One last question. What is your favorite Indian food?
Well, my favorite Indian food is anything cooked in an authentic tandoor oven. So tandoori chicken, I would say, chicken tikka.
Oh, that's the national dish of England, isn't it?
Chicken tikka masala. I like the dry Indian food. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Nice to talk to you. You made me hungry now.
Thank you.